Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have Keith Nelson here today on the show. He is a research professor from Penn State. He's a nature explorer, he's a sailor, and he's also the author of a book called Breakthroughs. So, welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. And I love, the phrase or word stargazer, stargazing and all of that. So in the course of this, I might have a little starry story or two to share.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I love Stargazing Angel, and Keith is mentioning my business, which is Stargazing Angel, energy healing and readings and so on and so forth. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, and you can jump into your story whenever you're ready.
Okay, I have just one question.
Sure.
What should I call you during this session?
Tina.
Gina. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be absolutely sure. You know how it is with names. Sometimes they, go.
Yep.
Okay, great. What I would like to do is to share a number of different stories, which on the surface might seem, like they're really different, that they're not related. But I'd like, in the course of doing it, find some connections, between these seemingly very different stories. And I think that what might come out of the stories, from a session like that, or from this, or from reading that book, um, is inspiration, decisions to try something new, a new level of awareness, a greater sense of how wonderful the world can be. So I'd like to start by talking about a trip on a sailing boat. A very good friend invited me to help bring his boat back from the British Virgin Islands. And there were five of us guys, and we set out from the British Virgin Islands to sail into the Bermuda Triangle, just way offshore, expecting to be out there 11 or 12 days. We were very prepared, multiple instruments, backup, life rafts, so forth. We're pretty confident sailors, but you never know. And when
Right.
you're far from land, you can't just call for help. So we were ready for all that, and things started out for the first day being just fine, just sailing along. But what, really bushwhacked us, gobsmacked us, was a couple days out, the wind slowed down, and then it stopped, totally stopped. We were totally becalmed. We had never expected that to happen. So what are you going to do, right? The universe gives you lemons to make lemonade. The universe gave us becalming. And it was otherworldly in the sense that there was no sound whatsoever. There's all the beautiful light all around and in the sky and clouds and so forth, but no sound whatsoever. No planes, no boats, no land, nothing. It's just amazing. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's almost mystical. And yeah, so we just went with it. We relaxed, we hung out, we swam in the ocean and didn't have to worry about getting back to the boat and so forth. So the other thing that was otherworldly, really amazing about it, is if you imagine a bowl, a rounded bowl, sitting on top of that bowl, and you look around and the bowl drops off in every direction. The ocean was so still you could see the curve of the earth, the curve of the ocean going off in every direction, 360 degrees. So we felt that we were in this just beautiful silent wilderness with a different view of the world than we could ever have imagined experiencing. And so that was really inspiring and relaxing and helped us connect to the world. And when the wind came back, something else pretty amazing happened. We set out and the wind was fairly steady, and then it got very steady. So we could just kind of sit back, We have the sails all set. They're tied off. We don't have to touch a thing. You know, the universe is just taking care of our boat. And so we're like on a dream boat just going along. And that's beautiful. And there's a wave, a bow wave each side kind of just flows around. But then here's the really strange and beautiful thing. At night, same thing, just sailing along smoothly. We don't have to work at all. The bow wave is coming by, but there's phosphorescence in the water. And so it's just glittering, glittering, glittering. It's diamonds, it's angels, right? Flowing and flowing on each side of the boat. And it is further enhanced because it's a perfectly still night. And all the stars are reflecting in the water. So we have this double luminescence in the water, the phosphorescent plankton making silver and white streams of angels, and then the stars going with that. And we just felt that we entered the most magical world you can imagine, and that the angels and the stars were talking to us, right? You know, just talking to us, and you know, talking peace and connection, love. It was really a thrilling experience I never would have imagined having, right? And it happened only because we kind of went out on the edge. We did something we'd never done before. We'd never been days offshore, sailing night and day. We have to do shifts because of course somebody has to be watching the sailboat unless it's becalmed. But all the other times, somebody
Hmm.
has to be awake even at night. So we did the shifts, and that's a little disruptive to your sleep. But so what? So many wonderful things were happening. So I mean that's the most direct, stargazing, star flowing experience, that fits with the title for your show.
Yeah, I love that magical feeling you get, and I've felt that before in nature, where
Uh-huh.
you just feel like this moment is pure magic.
Yes.
And one of the quickest ways for me to feel that way is a really good sunset.
Oh, sure.
So when you have one of those sunsets, and I have a newly built patio, so I get to enjoy my sunsets even more, and it focuses toward the west,
Uh-huh.
and I've got a thin line of trees back there. But when all of those beautiful colors surround you, the pinks and the purples and the corals, and it's that 360
Yeah,
moment of sunset.
sure.
I love those kind of sunsets. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like putting that energy away in a bank account for the future.
Oh, absolutely. That's, I love that expression. And, it's clear just right now, listening and watching you, how much it brings your life just thinking back to it.
Hmm.
And I think that there's so many experiences like that, if we really are open to them, that are, they're life changing. You can't go back to being, a blasé or whatever. You can't go back to expecting just ordinary things to happen because extraordinary things will happen.
Right, right. And if you weren't paying attention, or if you were inside and didn't look outside, or I'm always looking for the rainbows. I'm always looking at the sky, if when it's raining and sunny at the same time.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm always that person. Ooh, there could be a rainbow at any moment. So I'll like make sure I'm looking out the window. I'll run outside every 5 minutes to see if there's a rainbow forming.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, and sometimes you may do more than just, wish for or expect a rainbow. You may manifest it. You may bring it around to your
Mhm.
neighbor.
Oh, I've done that. I'm
Yeah.
not a amateur in that area. I've asked for certain weather. I don't know if you've done this as a sailor, but if I have to be outside, and I've done this for years and years and years. Like when my husband and I got married, it was we were having record-breaking rain that spring.
Oh boy.
And I just said, universe, whoever's in charge of the weather, can you just please clear it up for my wedding today?
Oh yeah.
Well, it ended up storming that day as it had been like every day that spring, and it knocked out the power to the wedding location,
Oh no.
actually.
Oh
It
my.
did. And so we had some nerve-wracking moments where we were like, are we going to have power? How are we going to play music? I had a DJ hired. Well, the power went back on and the skies cleared, so we were able to get married out in the garden.
That's wonderful. And I'm laughing as much as I am because we live on a farm in central Pennsylvania. If I look in that direction, I can see a ridge of mountains called Bald Eagle Ridge. And we got married here on the farm. We have a big old barn. And so we had, a reception planned in the barn and the ceremony itself out by a sculpture in the meadow. The day before, it was horrible weather. The day after, it was horrible weather. And on the day of the wedding, it was just perfect, just perfect. Uh, so that's one association to your stories, and the other one that I um, had flashed through my mind as you were talking about sunsets. My wife Kathy and I went on a honeymoon to the Greek island of Santorini, and Santorini has high cliffs and wonderful places to look out because it's a site of a lot of volcanic activity in the past. And so it created all that kind of rockiness and cliff structures. But it also created a hollow in the ocean called the caldera. So if you look out from the cliffs, maybe having a romantic dinner, whatever, you look out and it's beautiful just regardless of the weather or the sun. It's always beautiful looking out to more islands, and you don't know how far below that the volcano might decide to become active again, but
Hmm.
it's very peaceful. And looking out towards sunsets there uh, is it's just a beautiful spot. And I don't know whether you've experienced it, but one thing we experienced is you get all kinds of yellows and reds and oranges and so forth. And then just for a little bit, there's what they call the green flash. Have you heard of the green flash?
No.
It's just a brief, usually brief band uh, before the sunset finishes of green. That's very unusual in sunsets. So we saw, all the deepening colors, and then we saw that green band. So we will always remember that. We'll remember, like you, so many, inspiring sunsets.
Well, now I'll know. I'm gonna start looking for the green band now.
Well, I heard about this because, well, okay, another sailing connection I just remembered. Um, if you sail the Pacific, and there were Australian folks talking about experiencing that green band in the Pacific when they were sailing, and I had never seen it before. But then once I started watching for it, then maybe only 4 times. It's not quite once in a lifetime, but it's
Hmm.
very unusual. And that also ties into some of the aspects of the stories that I'm telling today, which is that many of them really do involve being present, putting yourself in situation where the dynamics may happen to create something, that will never be repeated for you. That's truly magical and once in a lifetime. So,
Yeah. So speaking of sunsets, have you ever seen um a rainbow in a sunset?
uh, no,
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that. I was so excited. So I live in the Charleston, South Carolina area. We get a lot of thunderstorms.
wow,
And in our last house, because I'm always running outside to see if there's a sunset,
sure.
it was a sunset and a rainbow.
Oh my gosh, double whammy. Oh wow, that's okay. There's a new one for me. I'm gonna lock that up in my awareness and memory. Uh, this
Yep.
is
And
something to
I've
watch
I've
for.
seen it twice, not
Oh my,
just once. In my current location, we also had a sunset rainbow. So,
oh boy, well, you're blessed. You're very
so
blessed.
I had a question about your sailing experience. So, where were you sailing? At what location were you when all that water calmed down and you were able to go swimming in the ocean? Where were you?
Well, we set out from the British Virgin Islands and we were headed originally for Newport, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we were sailing, in a mostly north direction, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
northeast. And so we were several hundred miles off the coast in the Bermuda Triangle. So, if you,
Makes sense.
I have to look at a map carefully, but probably if you go mostly east from Georgia and South Carolina, you know, for 250, 300 miles, they're probably about where we were.
Yeah, yeah. So no nervousness about being in the Bermuda Triangle, knowing that, boats and planes go missing and all sorts of that activity there.
Not really, not really. Uh, I mean, we were prepared. When we were very excited. We'd never done it before, but we were realistic and tried to take as many precautions so that if something destroys part of the boat, right, that we'll still be able to rig things, and keep it going. So we were prepared for heavy storms,
Hmm.
but we weren't prepared for demons rising from the deep or anything like that.
That requires a whole bunch of different tools than probably what you had on the boat.
Right. I'd like to tell you about another experience not far from there on a
Okay.
sailboat. It's about a 39-foot, sailboat, a sloop. It's kind of a basic, not very rich person's uh, sailing craft, and it has comfortable room for five guys to hang out and sleep and so forth. So it's for me, it's an impressive size sailing boat. Uh, but the other thing that happened that was right in that area was when we had some wind. We were just sailing along and just watching. We eventually saw some dolphins and so forth, but watching for anything that might come up. And two things happened that were really surprising. Flying fish flew out of the water across our nose and out the other side of the boat for the most part. A few of them were not quite as good flyers, so they ended up in our lap, and we picked them up and helped them make it to the other side. So I heard about flying fish, but they run in schools, so all of a sudden it's just water and movement through the water, and the next moment, here they come.
Hmm.
And then the other thing that came up was a mahi mahi fish. Uh, your screen may not really show it, but about 4 feet long. And
Hmm.
deep water fish came up. And when it came out of the water, this is amazing how many elements are connecting to your stories. It turned into rainbow colors. It wasn't the usual color of the fish. You could see every color of the rainbow, you know, across the whole body, and then it was gone again. So, needless to say, we certainly were not expecting that. And I don't expect any other time in the presence of a rainbow angel magical fish like that.
Yeah. Well, I think we live in a magical world. So if you're open to something magical happening at every moment, you're more likely to experience something magical happening in that moment.
That's right. And I like to talk about kind of a mix, like many things can happen at once dynamically. And if we do many of the moves to open ourselves up, to put ourselves in places that maybe we haven't been before, maybe some of the places that almost nobody has been before.
Hmm.
And if we have positive expectations, all right? And if we're kind of bringing our senses, very alive. And if we're putting aside goals, like, we're not walking outside to see the sunset or to go into the woods or out in the ocean so that we can plot the next steps in some big goals that we have, right? We
Hmm.
put down our ego, we put down, the projects that we have, and try to be as fully open and mindful as we can. It's easy to say that. Sometimes we just can't do it. The thoughts, pester you. But when you can do it and you've done it regularly, then you build confidence. Hey, I can do this again.
Hmm.
So you create over time. I think you create higher and higher probability of these kinds of experiences.
Yep. I completely 100% know what you're talking about. That's how it, and it really is like a practice in mindfulness.
Yeah.
Just clearing your mind, being in the moment, and being open to the possibilities and to a magical outcome. And that's when the cool things happen.
Yes, I agree. And I think another phrase that captures some of that is over time, if you've been working and practicing, you're tuning your instrument. You are an instrument in this world for
Hmm.
making things happen, for observing things, for knowing maybe where to go, better places to go, the better choices, the places to go and people to be around, that help to bring, all the complex conditions together for those amazing things.
Yeah. And that's why I love travel so much because you can only plan so much in travel, and there's always that element of surprise that happens, that throws a wrench in your plans.
Oh yes.
And
Oh yeah.
and also I think travel is a tool for healing and learning. And I have a really good friend that does this on purpose.
Uh,
And she'll travel to these places and everything gets kind of thrown up, any issue she may have or anything like that. She does this purposefully, like she knows this is going to happen, but she's
yeah.
doing it for her
Right.
highest, best interests.
Right. Yes. And your highest best consciousness.
Right. Hmm.
And believe me, being out, 300 miles from shore with no boats or planes, in what turned out to be 11 days, I think that we saw two ships that were, not close, but within sight at all. So out there alone and, uh, go with the flow. Well, you're on a sailboat away from everybody else. You have no choice. you
Yeah.
accept what's
Yeah.
there, and hopefully you appreciate it. You learn from some of it, and I think it's a and travel of any kind ties in with that. It it forces you you know to accept the conditions that you're in rather than
Exactly. And I think the key is if there is a change in your plans, to just shift and adjust and be flexible
exactly.
about, you know, the change. Don't resist it, fight it, you know, I mean, don't get overly upset. Like, don't get stuck on it
Oh,
is the
right.
key, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I swear it would have been easy for any of us on the sailboat when we became becalmed to say, oh, darn, you know, we came here to sail. We didn't
We're
come here.
not going anywhere right now.
So, so it's in one sense, it's being stuck. But on the other hand, it's opening all these doors to experience that otherwise would not be open.
And it's also letting go of control
Yes.
because I think we have this overinflated sense that we can control our environment or control what happens. And
Yes.
in
Yes.
reality, you can put your energy toward what you want to happen, but you've got to be flexible and open to something else happening.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. If we still have quite a bit of time, I have a very different kind of story I like to slip in,
Sure.
and it's about kids. And out of my exploration of how ordinary kids learn, uh, I thought that I had all notifications off. Uh, um, but sorry about that. Just a little ping from my phone. Um, uh, Thinking about kids and thinking about how kids get stuck, just like
Mm-hmm.
we might be stuck because we were going to fly someplace and now we have to change our plans, or being stuck and being calm.
Yeah.
So what we came across, my um, racquetball partner Stephen and he knew a lot about working with kids who had language delay, and I'd never studied any kids with language delay. And so we did a review of all the studies that had been done at that time. And unfortunately, none of them were done well enough to show that the standard treatment that kids were getting for language was changing kids' language in a way when they talk to their parents, when they talk to their peers, when they communicate with the school teachers. Nobody was demonstrating. So people had some simplistic ideas and they were just using them again and again. And pretty much everybody thought about the same kind of simplistic ideas. And if you're convinced that you can make something work and other people are convinced, then you don't check. So we check. And so we came up with some creative new ways of working with kids who were stuck. And here's the image I want you to see. A 6-year-old who's, entering first grade, and of course needs to deal with reading, needs to deal with everything that the teacher said, needs to deal with other kids who can talk like a 6-year-old, but they're talking like 3-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're behind so many eight balls. They can't understand what the teacher is saying. They can't understand what the kids are doing. They're rejected by many of their kids, right? It's easy to become less self-confident. Over time, kids who enter school like that are likely to do terrible in reading. By the time they're 12, 15, they're likely to have mental health problems. They're likely to get into the criminal justice system. They're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any possibility, we said, that we could create a new way of working with kids that was so challenging and so dynamically um, um, involving, engaging for the kids? Really? challenge. They need to learn a lot, so make it really challenging, but make it really warm and interactive. And kids can talk about what they want to talk about. It might be dinosaurs, it might be dolls, it might be stars and the planets and outer space or Star Trek, whatever it might be. But they
Hmm.
get to talk about what they want to do, not some agenda and checklists that we have. And what we found was that 6-year-olds who are pretty smart, their brains are more developed than 3-year-olds. 6-year-olds who got this new kind of language therapy that's very conversational and very centered on the child's thoughts and feelings. The kids learned as fast, usually, as ordinary kids. There wasn't anything wrong with their brain. They didn't lack a language brain. They just lacked really totally dynamically good conditions. And in fact, many of the kids learned faster than ordinary kids because we were making the conditions much richer than what ordinary kids get. Ordinary kids get enough, but we were making it like super rich.
Hmm.
And so, when we're stuck any place in helping a kid, helping ourselves, helping society, helping our mindfulness and our awareness, if we're stuck in our progress, then, really stepping back and saying, are there some new experiments that we can try that we've never tried before, right? If we keep doing the same thing, expecting wonderful things to happen, then it's very unlikely that suddenly what hasn't been working is going to change. So it's again that may seem very far from stargazing and rainbows, but I don't think it is. I think it's the way our spirits and our minds work and make choices about what can enhance the kid's life or what can enhance our life. And the process of doing that, I think, is really, in many respects, very similar across all those areas.
Well, I think with anything, if it's not working, try something different and try something new. And it sounds like these children who are speech delayed, maybe they just have a very low tolerance for talking about things they don't care about,
I think I've certainly seen that in a lot of kids. I agree. Yeah.
right? And I can completely relate to that as an adult because I do like meeting new people and I like talking, but I like to talk about magical things. That's my favorite subject. And if we start talking about our kids, I mean, and sports and, topics I'm not interested in, or just a whole lot of complaining about
Right.
everything,
Right.
I check out. I'm bored. I can't talk about this stuff, you know?
It reminds me of a particular kid named Willie, who was a friend of my daughter, Leilani. Um, and I went into the kindergarten class. It's the kind of thing that was really run in a very open and child-centered kind of way. And so we went in and talked to the kids, and Willie brought over a book about snakes, and he wanted to talk about snakes. That's what he wanted to talk about all the time with everybody.
Hmm.
Well, it turns out that my older brother Craig is a biologist, and he started his career and spent a lot of it collecting snakes and lizards and frogs and so forth. And when we were kids, we went out in pastures and woods and so forth. When we collected snakes and shared them with other kids and showed off, right? So I was completely comfortable with snakes, and I had lots of snake stories. So we got along famously. Right? He was glad to have somebody who loves snakes and liked to talk about them, and me too. You know,
Mhm, mhm.
and that's when kids really learn something um, when they're alive, right, to the moment, and it's bringing in their spirits and their deep interests or fascination.
Well, it's making me think, what did I like to talk about when I was younger? I don't really think I did a whole lot of talking about certain subjects, but I do remember I used to love to have dolls, like all kinds of dolls,
Okay.
Barbies and stuffed animals. And I remember role playing and doing stories among the dolls.
Oh, sure.
And then I would create like a little fort with blankets, or I would
Mm.
create like different scenarios, conversations.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I did a lot of that because I grew up in New York City. I didn't have a yard or countryside to go out and play in without supervision.
Sure.
So a lot of my play happened in my bedroom, with my dolls or my imagination.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, that reminds me again of my daughter. I had no intention of bringing her in here today, but there she is. And it reminds me of when she was, about 4. And I told you we're on a farm, but another farm girl who lives not far away, Emma, and she would get together, and they weren't, they're only 4, so they'd done a little pony riding and so forth, but they were fascinated by horses. And in the living room here in our house, they would take sheets of paper and they would make a barn, right? And they'd make a house and they'd make a corral and they'd have this horse and they'd have that horse. I mean, they would cover 10 feet by 10 feet with these created spaces and the interactions among them, right? It was it was completely absorbing, for both of them.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that not just about horses, but I'm sure that it fostered their skills in imagination and creativity.
yeah. I remember having a lot of kind of conversations, even with people that I knew, the kind of conversations I wished I had with them. And I don't know, you think that you're like everybody else, and now I'm thinking maybe this was kind of unusual for a child to do.
Uh-huh.
But I would imagine conversations with friends or family or, kind of like fantasies type stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's what, again, you're actively creating something. You're creating stories in your head, which, is practice in exploring, story space, possibility space. I mean, it just makes you stronger and stronger. Again, we talked about tuning your instrument and practice and so forth. You,
yep,
it just, and the really super thing about that is you weren't dependent for the most part on somebody else contributing or somebody else responding to it.
right. I was making it up, the whole thing up myself.
And nobody could interfere with it. And here you are, a grown-up woman who seems to also appreciate interacting with some people in the world quite a lot.
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it only built you up. It didn't set you back, is what I'm saying.
Right, right. And I'm not, I mean, I'm an introvert, but I can be very outgoing too.
Uh-huh.
So I can be both.
Yeah.
I just think as I've grown older, I've become more introverted because I understand how energy affects me and that I need to recharge with quiet or from removing myself from the world sometimes. And that makes me introverted now. But I know that you have a book and it's called Breakthroughs. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
Okay, sure, sure. Um, the idea for breakthroughs came in a way from the kind of stories that I've been telling you. Um, I began to notice that my hobbies of walking in the woods and sailing and paying attention to nature, um, and doing research with kids and reading about how other people make scientific breakthroughs or rehab or changes in society or stewardship and improving habitat for macaws and rainforests. You know, just comparing how different people were approaching things that really led to remarkable changes, to breakthroughs. And I just ended up thinking more and more about the common processes. And the subtitle for the book is Realizing Our Potentials Through Dynamic, Tricky Mixes. So it's a book about trying to inspire people to see that even when people are really stuck, even when people have been using simplistic attempts at solutions, that you can shake things up. You can
Mhm.
dynamically explore and surprise yourself and surprise other people because you're creating new combinations of conditions or forces that nobody else has done before. And if you have confidence that that's possible, even for tough problems, right? Then, more and more people will approach problems with, open eyes and minds and spirits and say, well, we sure thought this would work, but it isn't working. So we've got to break out of it, you know, and go and try to new things. And so, new mixes of things that are dynamic, and I like the phrase dynamic, tricky mixes because sometimes it's really difficult. You don't create those conditions. You have to try and try again and tune and try again until you get it. Just like the new conversational, child-centered work on helping kids who are behind in language, right? Nobody had ever done that. And I'm not saying that my friend Steve and I were special in that. I'm saying what we did is what many other people have done, and we can learn from examples that are way, way different than what we usually deal with as issues or central projects in our life.
So can you give an example of a dynamic, tricky mix?
Uh, sure. Um, I'll go back to kids again, and if you walk into when we started doing research with deaf kids, if you go into a school for the deaf and you check, you think you have some software that might be helpful for deaf kids, for 11 or 12-year-olds. So we invented some software that for the first time had sign language. The computers were a little primitive at the time, but now we have, very modern versions of it. Um, uh, Stuff that they had on computers had no sign language whatsoever. But we wanted to know where the kids were in their reading. And here's what we found that was absolutely shocking. We found that many of the kids had zero reading skills. They were not just behind. They had zero reading skills. If you didn't give them a simplistic canned reading test, you gave them a sheet of paper that they'd never seen before, and you asked them to read the words and phrases and sentences. Many of the kids could not read any of the words, right? They had been stuck in their progress. So school was stuck in the way it approached instruction. And we were able to show that within hours, kids who had not learned anything about reading, it wasn't that they didn't have a reading mind. It was just that they never had a dynamic, tricky mix of conditions that is rich in many, many respects. The kid creates what happens on the screen, animations, videos. You don't tell the child what to pay attention to now repeat it or practice it. They discover because the computer's interactive. And so kids who didn't know a thing about reading might encounter a sentence like this. The um, uh, dinosaur sails, here comes sailing again. The dinosaur sails across the lake and hugs the bear, right? That's a lot of sentence for a kid who has zero reading skills.
Mhm.
It's a whole new mix. But we thought, and some of the teachers were scared, oh, that's too complicated. But you know, most of the teachers were okay, well, we'll try. So all that complexity in the sentence itself. But for the kids, looking at the video, it's very clear the dinosaur has gotten in the sailboat, sailed across the lake, and hugged the bear. So all the kid needs to do is to map the clear meaning that's right there in their mind that they made happen, by punching something on the computer to some of the words they need to read. Okay, they don't get all the words at once, but they keep doing this, right? It's like talking about your dolls, or talking
Yeah.
about, whatever interests you, so you work from some meaning that the kid has helped create, and you don't test the hell out of them, along the way. You don't say, pay attention to this, pay attention, or you're not getting it, pay attention more, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You've got to respect the kid's spirit, and in addition, we had, teachers who were fluent in sign language, which the kids had never had. And we had the sign language on the computer. That's a lot of new conditions, right? It was tricky to put it together, but
Hmm.
for many of these kids, it was clearly effective within a few hours. And they keep doing it. They really make progress. And once you see that a kid in your class who's been lousy in reading is really making great progress, then you get another dynamic tricky mix. You have teachers who know that this kid can learn, who expect that this kid can learn, and are learning to be respectful for, okay, how can I be part of that effective mix? But we know the kid can do it. So again, it transforms expectations as well as the kid's progress.
So I get one of the key parts is getting that child's attention and interest, right?
Yeah.
And learning to read. And that was that dinosaur sailing a boat and hugging the bear that caught their interest.
Yeah, and uh, another part of it that I think is very important to see is if you have a kid or an adult who seems to be stuck in moving forward in some area, um, and they haven't been, it's easy to go to the simplistic attempted solution. Keep things really simple. Don't give them very much challenge, which makes it kind of boring.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and
And
the
we don't learn very well when we're bored.
exactly, exactly. And so I like to compare what can happen in any area. Someone who's an adult and is in rehab, or is in psychotherapy for depression. There's stories in the book about this too. Then, uh, if we have a simplistic, repeated attempt that doesn't really fully involve the spirit and the attention of the person, you know, we're very unlikely to succeed. And if we haven't seen anybody else, pull off, you know, remarkable changes, sort of catch 22. If we've never seen it, then it may be hard to believe, right? It's easy to kind of blame the person who's stuck. Oh, well, they just may not be able to do it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so there are many aspects of um, adult change as well, where you can see that someone who's having great difficulty and is not getting beyond the difficulty until you get a fairly dramatic change in the mix of conditions. And so there are examples of, uh, adults, including the King of England, you know, the King's Speech is a movie about that, but many other examples where stuttering is is like holding a person back tremendously. But then they get some new person who inspires them and explores with them ways of tamping down their anxiety and organizing. And you show anytime you take someone who seems disorganized, stuck, that they never are going to be able to do it, and you get them to do it, right? Then that opens up a whole new set of dynamic mixes because their confidence, their willingness to try, you know, the willingness to explore opens up and opens up. Um, so it's uh, it's so easy to think that if we're a well-trained person as a teacher, as a therapist, maybe as someone who tries to deal with kids in poverty or in Head Start or working with saving the ocean or saving other aspects of the natural world. And it's you have a simplistic approach and it's not working, it's easy to become discouraged and stop exploring rather than recruiting new people and new pathways and seeing how you can really ramp up the positive dynamics. Um, and so I, 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 I've been inspired by so many people myself doing things that I never would have imagined that they'd be able to pull off. So I've tried to include a wide range of examples like that. So a reader might conclude, okay, well, hopefully, maybe that was kind of fun just to read about. But as you encounter a bunch of different examples, then maybe many readers will say, I think I can do some of that kind of thing in areas where I didn't really think I could do anything, right? Or for a problem I didn't think could ever be solved.
Yeah. I think, you know, I've always thought this way. I always said that I thought outside the box.
Great.
And I always loved like brainstorming and troubleshooting.
Oh, yes.
But I used to work for the government and they completely hate that. Like,
Oh, God.
I was completely like a fish out of water. They don't want to think outside the box. They have a book of rules and regulations, and you need to follow the steps. And I just thought that was kind of insane,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and it was not a good place for me. I don't know what a good place for me would be. I don't know, more a creative or maybe a creative agency or anything, but I never ended up working for any. But I never liked being boxed in, following rules, regulations created by somebody else for whatever dumb reasons, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, boy, I've seen that so many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. So I ended up being just an entrepreneur and doing my own thing because I don't really fit in to regular, normal society.
Yeah, well, boy, I can certainly resonate to all of that. And I think that um, one of the things that actually is, kind of right about what people in government and schools and environmental policy and so forth, sometimes they're doing is they want to come up with a solution that works. And they don't want to just come up with a solution. They want to come up with the best way of doing things. And so, and who wouldn't? I mean, why would you do something that's not the best? I'll tell you why it's not so straightforward to do what's the best thing to do, because you have to keep exploring and you have to have different people try different things, or you're never going to find out what the
Right.
best is, because you're stuck in the frame, the silo, the box that you set up because you think you're smart, you're well intentioned, but you think you can put it all down, and then everybody who does that will make things go smoothly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's insane, as you say.
It is. And the best is based on conditions that don't change.
Yes.
And one of the universe's rules to me, conditions are everything's changing at every moment, at every time.
That's right. That's right. Dynamic again,
Right.
dynamic processes. They're totally in line with what I'm emphasizing in my stories in the book. And, absolutely. So if you anticipate that what you're seeing now is not going to be what you're seeing in a month or 2 months from now,
Hmm. Hmm.
then you're prepared to use all the tools. You've been tuning your instruments, so you observe more carefully, right? You experiment more. You drop your ego and not insist upon staying with something that you decided on just because you decided on it, right?
Right. Right.
You remain
Yeah.
open.
You are allowed to change your mind. And that's why I love one of my favorite books ever is this book called Conversations with God. Because in the conversations with God, the God says you can change your mind at every minute of every second of every day. You're supposed to. And
Yeah.
when I read those words, I was like, yes, because this is how I am.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, Tina, this is not only okay to be this way, but it's how we're supposed to live our lives on planet Earth.
Yes. 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 And you used the word control before. Yeah, all of us at times want to control things, right? All of us want to be protected, against shocks and unexpected things, and of course against negative things. But of course, we can never avoid all that. But we can often steer ourselves towards more of the magical, towards
Yes.
resilience when the negative comes up that we just cannot avoid, right?
So here's my secret when that happens.
Okay.
So I put out my intention and my words according to what I want to happen.
Hmm.
I'm very intentional about this. So I live in South Carolina. We have the worst drivers ever. It seriously is horrendous. Every time you get out in a car, it's like you're
Mm,
taking chances,
right,
right?
right.
So every time I get in the car, I ask for the most benevolent outcome for all drivers and animals on the road today. And then I
Okay.
say thank you. And I really feel like that helps me keeps me safe from harm because I've communicated to the higher power, universe,
Yeah,
creator, whatever you want to call it, that's always listening to us and
yes,
listening to what we want.
yes,
And I said, this is what I want. I didn't specify the outcome. I said I want a benevolent outcome.
yes, right, yes.
And
No,
I
I,
say animals too because I live close to the countryside. I see a lot of animals getting hit on the road and all of that. So to me, that's part of it.
right, of course. And I do a lot of the same kind of anticipation, asking for the cooperation of the universe,
Hmm.
uh, imagery, and I think I, I know it has an impact. I know it has an
Yes.
impact upon the way I feel and the way in which I act in the world.
Hmm.
So, again, the dynamics, if you're actively talking to the powers in the universe and reaching out with positive energy, different things are going to happen dynamically than if you're just drifting or if you're walking around with a chip on your shoulder, and angry,
Or you're expecting the worst, which a
yes,
lot of people do in the name of being prepared.
right.
But what you're doing is you're putting your energy towards something that you're afraid of and you really don't want to happen.
Yes, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there still a little time for a tale about a critter or two in nature? Have
If
you
it's
seen?
quick, because we're approaching our 1 hour
Uh,
point.
Okay, well, yeah, let me try a fairly brief story that's based right here on the farm in Pennsylvania. Uh,
Okay.
so at one point, we had three Labrador retrievers, three dogs. And so lots of the times when I would take a walk with my daughter or spouse and go up there, we were all together and so forth. But there are times, maybe partly the introverted side, where I would like to walk by myself.
Hmm.
And this is about a walk that I took across the meadows into the woods. And the snow was falling. It was basically a blizzard. And I was just appreciating, the soft silence and the snow falling on my face. It was, kind of heavy walking, but I didn't mind it. It was great. And I go into the woods, and there are pine trees, and the branches are just, heavy with snow. It's so heavy with snow. And I try to push a branch aside and another branch aside without getting my face and my neck, totally covered with snow. Um, and I get past the tree to just a small clearing. And there, about 8 feet away from me, it's a bobcat standing in the snow. He's clearly not expecting me to be there, nor I'm expecting him to be there.
Right.
And as I'm telling you, I'm recalling in my mind, I could see every whisker on his face. I could see his ears, triangles of ears, black on the tips, and uh, tufts of hair coming out the top. Of course, I could see his eye. And he didn't panic, and I didn't panic. We just took each other in for the longest moment. It might have been 2 minutes. I don't know. Lose track of time. But it was a magical, once in a lifetime experience to be in this winter wonderland, deep snow, the snow falling that close to a wild creature that's taking you in. And then he turns and he runs. And the snow is so deep that it's like seeing a snowmobile or something. The snow is flying everywhere. He goes up a log that's fallen against a tree, a long log that's fallen against another tree. So it's like about a 45-degree angle. He goes up the tree into this oak tree. And the only way, there's no other tree close. There's a log he went up, and he goes up into the tree and disappears like an angel. I walk all around that tree from every angle, and I cannot see where that bobcat has gone. So out of nothing, there he is, just fully and incredibly present, vivid. It's like I don't know, maybe not just a snowmobile, but like some kind of weird plowing mechanism. It's snow going every place, and then silence, and somehow he's just disappeared and become part of the tree. So that's another once in a lifetime one for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Oftentimes when I see wild animals I'm a very feeling person, so I feel like sometimes the animals around us are afraid to be near us or, they're very skittish I'm not afraid to say I will speak to them and say, it's okay, you're safe with me. You don't have to go away, you can stay.
I have had so many conversations like that, including with a green heron up at our pond a day ago. All right.
Mhm.
I,
Mhm.
I just say, he flies into one tree in the open and kind of hiding in the tree close by. I say, it's just me, you're perfectly safe here. And I have many, many other tales of spending quite a bit of time with a creature
Hmm.
who appreciates that kind of nonverbal message and presence, and we just spend time together.
Yeah. And it's an honor. To me, it's an honor that a wild animal would be so close to me or trust me or land on me and
Yeah.
feel perfectly safe.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Almost like I'm a tree branch. I had a dragonfly was
uh-huh,
sitting out on my patio and she landed on my skirt.
uh-huh.
Just like I was any kind of bush or tree or flower, and she stayed for a little while, and then she flew away.
Yeah. Well, another experience we've had at this farm, and I've had with fifth grade kids, where we got them involved in improving habitat for monarchs. You know, they're
Mhm, mhm.
endangered. Milkweed is, what for the most part what you have, but flowering plants to accompany the milkweed and so forth. And so one of the pictures I have of myself is of a monarch who's landed on my forehead. And this year is a wonderful year for the milkweed. The climate has just been terrific. And there's a organization at University of Kansas who's doing many dynamic, tricky mixed things to help us understand and to enhance monarch. And they say it's a pretty darn good year, all along the east coast of the United States. And it certainly seems that way here.
Yeah, I'm one of those nerds that, I'm anywhere outside and I see a butterfly, and I'm like, "Butterfly!"
Oh, you bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
great.
Keith, I so enjoyed having you on the show, and thank you for sharing your stories with us. Just real quick, let listeners know how they can find you and find your book.
Okay. Um, well, the book can be found everywhere. Uh, you know, booksellers sell it, as the publishers say. But if you use the full title, Breakthroughs Realizing Our Potentials Through Dynamic Tricky Mixes, you can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Target and many, many, many um, other places. They can also find me on Facebook uh, under the name Keith Nelson and on LinkedIn and a number of other sites. And here's a little pen about the book, which might not show up now, but I'll just read it. My email, I welcome email feedback about any of this, is Keith Nelson Art, just all one long word, Keith Nelson Art at Gmail. And you can also find my spirit walking around, probably in the woods or the ocean, close to wherever you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keith.
Well, thank you. It's really, really delightful, and so many ways in which you and I connected. So I think hopefully some listeners will uh, find that our back and forth conversation is really inspiring to them. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.